Good.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Well. Steve is first in the chat.
Good morning. Oh, did you send the link?
Sure did.
We'll start there. What the hell?
It's not my fault.
Wow.
Not my fault. I just sat down. I haven't even touched the cables.
Everything was good until 37 seconds. Not even. What the hell? Oh, now I can't even fix it. Why? Why? Okay. There.
Wait a minute. Are we good?
It fixed.
I think we're good.
Ah!
Good morning.
Okay.
Boy.
I got to reroute that cable, but I have to buy a longer cable to make it from there to down there. Good morning, everybody. The camera works again.
Yes. Yes. No, this is one of those things that you guys can't see because unless you've actually been inside the studio, all of this that you cannot see is custom built desk. That's kind of bolted into the wall. So take everything you know about swapping out a computer cable at your house and square it. And that's swapping out a computer cable here.
Yes. Basically, when I was putting a desk in here to build my studio on, I shopped for computer desks, and I thought to myself, you're a giant man that can't walk into bathrooms without turning sideways. We need a man-sized desk. So I went and bought 2 full sheets of solid oak plywood. And that is my L desk.
And it works. It works. So we've been kind of slack about making sure that we tell good morning to people. Should we do that real quick?
Yeah, let's take, and I want to say good morning to Fish and Golf and Guns, because we were missing him for a little while there, and he left a comment on a video a couple days ago, said he got a new phone and something happened weird with
something weird
happened with his subscriptions, and he realized one morning that he was missing us, and brother, we missed you too. We even commented, I wonder where Fish and Golf and Guns went. So we was worried about you. Good to see you back. Glad to see you're in good health. At least good enough to watch this show, so I'm making some guesses there. Roll with the way how you must. I see Uncle Steve drew first blood this morning. Yo!
And then, let's see, Pit Danny. Alex McDonald of the TPS report, who, guys, go sub to him on Rumble or check him out on Facebook. They're currently banned from YouTube, and it's looking like that's going to be permanent, but we shall see, shan't we?
Yeah, we've been thrown off of YouTube. They were deleted.
And then, let's see, your mother and father are here. Good morning.
Good morning, folks.
To both of you. Let's see.
Jen, good morning.
Yeah, good morning. And then, of course, you already said good morning to Jen. And then, the Fit Life with Danielle has joined us. She's the other half of the TPS report.
Hell yeah. I see James Wilbanks is there. Hey, James, your wife and your boys were over here last night, and we blew up the big, the big screen in the yard, and did the driveway theater showing of the sing-along version of A Nightmare Before Christmas, and the kids appeared to have a ball with that. Thanks for lending me your family for the evening.
And then Crackshot also joined us this morning. Good morning.
Don't forget Scrimshaw or Andrea. Good morning. Good morning.
Oh, I would never forget Andrea on purpose. I just didn't see her. And if you've not seen the Fit Life with Danielle's most recent episode,
I haven't actually. Sorry, Danny.
Well, I have, and bless the intern, because he pointed out that part of that episode could come from their Ring doorbell camera, and oh my God, it's
okay. I'm looking forward to this now.
it's one of those things that's like it's awkward to watch, and yet it's fantastic viewing. So,
wow, and my mother says if you're not pissing someone off, you're doing something wrong. You've heard us mention several times on this show, and you will never actually see the infamous thread. And kind of our watchword there is, if you're not on at least 5 government watch lists, you're not even trying.
So,
in fact, you're probably not even an American.
So Pancho Ramirez and Biscuits and Gravy, man, still a couple of great. And I'm just Cameron Anderson on YouTube, right? Like it didn't occur to me that I could pun myself.
Right.
So,
hey, I know you want to get to this, but, and I do too, but real quick, Alex says, but I'm using it as an opportunity to talk to some senators about some new legislation here in Georgia. Brother, anything I can do to help with that, just being another face that says, hey, I've had this experience too, or, if you just need to borrow some big scary from time to time, I'm good for it. So let me know if there's anything I can do, anybody that I could get you in touch with that you haven't already talked to. Let me know, brother. I'm down for that struggle, as it were. Speaking of struggles,
you're down with the
ready
struggle?
For this?
Down with the struggle? Right.
Yeah. That reminds me, Mom, Dad, we need to go visit the Shrimp Pimp sometime again soon.
Okay, so it's Woke Wednesday, and look, we're gonna cover this because it is ridiculously the hell on brand for us, because it's woke and it's sci-fi and it's extremely nerdy, and yeah, like big nerds, like if Doctor Who got into a fight with the cast from Star Wars, like Star Trek characters would be the judge in their point system. Like it would be, that's about how that would go. Okay.
Dave says, I see Cameron survived the end of Monday's episode. Just barely, Dave, because he doesn't sleep here. So the Comanche didn't find him while he wasn't paying attention.
The Comanche, not the Apache. Golly. Maybe we should name those attack helicopters Comanche instead of Apaches.
You ready?
So the season 3 trailer for Picard dropped, and I've been pretty hard on the first 2 seasons of Picard. A concept I was initially very excited about, because in Star Trek, some of the best Star Trek stories come from a little bit of fourth wall breaking, where they incorporate the fact that things happen to the actors in real life into the show. Because while Star Trek has always been woke, as it were, it's also always been a character-driven drama. And while it would tackle social issues, and it would even pick a side on those social issues, and it was not afraid to pick a left-leaning side on those social issues, by the way, because it was a character-driven drama, in order to tell its stories, it had to present complete characters, and to tackle some of these issues, it actually had to give a fair amount of credence to both sides, right? There's an episode of The Next Generation where Beverly Crusher is kidnapped by some terrorists, basically some separatists. And at first, they're just they're bad guys. But then as we follow Beverly Crusher into their world, we find out actually that they've got legitimate grievances against their government. And what we thought was their narcissistic leader who was using others as human meat shields is actually willing to sacrifice his own life for this cause, and does by the end of the episode. So you get all this nuance, right? So I was super excited for Picard, and then it started to come out, and it sucked. But then season 3 came around, and season 3, oh my God, they're going to reunite the entire original cast. Yay! And then the trailer dropped, and well, it's my own fault for getting my hopes up, honestly.
Never hope. Hope is dangerous.
It's not just the hope, it's the...
Hope is Obama. Ready? This trailer's almost 3 minutes long. We're
not going to watch the whole thing. Well, we're offering commentary, so we're not even going to have to pause.
Admiral.
Oh, wait, can we just briefly stop it there? Just...
Oh, you want to talk about how he's eating French fries and that's
No. I didn't mean there. I just meant stop it, not back it up. It shows you how much of a vanity project this is for Patrick Stewart, who, the 3rd season in a row now, he's been pulled out of retirement to come save the day again.
Right.
Like, okay, my dude.
Beverly Crusher.
We are being hunted.
Who is it out there?
It's a good question.
I don't know.
We must run.
From what?
I mean, so far,
Okay, 7 of 9.
That's not 7 of 9. Yes, that is 7 of 9. That is Jerry Ryan playing 7 of 9. But if you know anything about the show, that's not 7 of 9.
Right.
That is not. In fact, speaking of characters doing things that goddamn wouldn't.
How very
Is that Gary
precise
Oldman?
with your timing, Jean-Luc Picard. Fire!
It is.
You should know that I now prefer pacifism to combat.
No. For those of you that are not
So they trans-dwarf?
I don't know what to... Look,
He's trans-Klingon?
Look, it's... For those of you that don't watch Star Trek, okay, so what? It's a bad joke. No. It is so much more than a bad joke. Do you know for a long time...
You know what it is? It's the United States Army publishing a Disney princess recruiting ad.
I like that. That's not where I thought you were going to take that at all, but that's actually a pretty good... That's actually pretty good. Look,
Let me be clear. Crystal clear. Pacifism is the opposite of moral decency. The entire philosophy of pacifism is a capitulation to the assertion that nothing has value sufficient that it should be protected against the slings and arrows of the ignominy of an evil world.
well,
It is
no.
the assertion that I don't love my wife and children enough to protect them from a mobster with a gun. You had better believe that there are things in this world that I love. And in the face of their minor inconvenience, all other lives are forfeit. Pacifism is the blanket assertion that you are incapable of love.
Well, okay. For those of you that are...
And yes, Sergeant Major, that is why we missed mission by 25,000 this year.
Well, here's the thing. Yeah, submissive warp, subversion. Look, here's the thing. If you don't give a Rin Tin shit about Star Trek, nobody cares.
Yeah, that's okay.
No, I'm saying for an audience member, like say maybe Alex, that I'm shocked has not made fun of us yet for covering this. Just as an example.
He's busy brewing his pot of coffee.
He's busy brewing his coffee, is he?
Yeah, he's probably over there rolling tea leaves or whatever you people do.
Anyhow, but for somebody like that, okay, so what? Worf is a pacifist now, as he wears a sword, by the way.
Right.
Right. Just to state the obvious, the Klingons are an honor-bound warrior race. There is no such thing as a preference for pacifism. They can be talked out of combat, but you better have a damn good reason, okay? But here's the thing. For a long time, this show concept was kicked around. To where they were actually going to bring back Michael Dorn, the actor that plays Worf, and they were going to go ahead and allow him to be Old Man Worf. And it was going to be this kind of neat inversion of Star Trek: The Next Generation, where they would desperately look for a diplomatic solution and would occasionally be backed into violence. The ship Worf was going to be in command of was not going to be afraid to start with violence, and if you survive the initial volley of attacks, then maybe you could explain yourself. And of course, Worf was going to be older and wiser and all these other things. It sounded like a great show. and you could even do a thing where you've got Worf who for whatever reason prefers nonviolence because, I don't know, he's just been in so many fights at this point. He's old and fucked up and just, like,
yeah, I'm not jumping over grape rows anymore. My knees hurt. And that's usually where the mines are, by the way. The easy way is mined. And incoming fire has the right of way.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah,
that's right. That reminds me of when I took a defensive driving course, and the defensive driving instructor said, "You need to understand the dump truck always has the right of way."
Correct.
Even if he does not have the right of way, he still has the right of way.
Incoming fire has the right of way. Murphy loves us and wants us to be stronger.
So, anyhow, it's we're already so far into it, and we want to roll over to the Jon Stewart thing.
Yeah,
Long story short, it's Woke Wednesday. They've decided for a cheap gag to undermine literal decades of character development from a fan favorite character because, and honestly, I think this is the continued spitting in the face of guys like me that grew up watching this shit on TV that are like, oh my God, you're bringing back the entire original cast? Are you going to give me like some Wrath of Khan style, like, character driven think piece on how...
Right. Yeah, it's, hey, Cameron. Hey, we went and looked and we found all the things you love. All of them. We found all the things that you love. There's the trash can.
Yeah, basically, because they could do that. Because one of the things that made The Wrath of Khan so good was actually opening the movie with Captain Kirk turning 50.
Mathey says that's because the dump truck is bugger than you, or bigger. No, it is also bugger.
It's whatever it wants to be, and you.
If the dump truck wants to bugger you.
Yeah, but I'm just saying, like, you could do it. It's like, that's what made The Wrath of Khan so good. Captain Kirk turns 50, and it's like, what does mortality really mean in this situation? And, right? Like, there's. So.
But it's also true that Star Trek was also, by a wide margin, largely utilitarian schlock on the philosophical front.
Well, I mean, there were certain things that they didn't have to confront. Like, when you've got unlimited energy, or virtually unlimited energy at disposal. Correct. Yeah, sure, you can build whatever society you want. So,
yep.
And speaking of schlock, speaking of getting older, speaking of questioning mortality.
Speaking of tranting your heroes.
I mean, let's be clear. Jon Stewart was never a hero. Now,
No.
I thought the guy was funny. He's
Yeah,
definitely
I'll give
funnier
you
than
that.
Trevor Noah.
You ever watch Jon Stewart? You ever watch Jon Stewart
On weed.
I mean,
And the
that's
answer to that
Jon Stewart on weed.
And the answer to that question is yes. At least for me.
I actually haven't. I've watched Jon Stewart.
Right.
So this clip from Jon Stewart is trending on social media.
What the media can learn.
What media can learn from Jon Stewart's surprising interview with Arkansas AG Rutledge. This, okay. You know, we're going to watch the clip, and I think it's about here.
I know that there are doctors and that we had plenty of people come and testify before our legislature who said that, we have 98% of the young people who have gender dysphoria, that they are able to move past that. And once they have the help that they need, no longer suffer from gender dysphoria. 98%
Wow.
without that medical treatment.
That's an incredibly made-up figure. That doesn't comport with any of the
You just pause
studies or documentation that exists from these medical organizations.
Okay, there's a lot here that I want to cover. He just said that's an incredibly made-up figure, right? She said 98% of these kids that are, they grow out of it.
Would you like the rhetorical flourish she pulled there where she said doctors testified to the legislature?
That's not a rhetorical flourish.
But look, whatever the trick of language she did to make it seem like this was her assertion instead of these doctors.
Gotcha. Okay, stick with me because this is part of the point that I'm about to make. So she says 98% basically grow out of it. And he does this thing. This is something lefties love to do. Oh, well, that's an incredibly made up number. Well, that doesn't comport with any of the science, the doctors, the this, the that.
Yeah, condescension is a form
Where
of
are you getting your
argumentation.
figures? Where are your receipts? What studies can you reference? Okay, before I get into the rest of what's wrong with this asshole, let me back up just a hair. She made the statement, we had doctors and experts testify. So, for starters, John, the answer to your question is the government official record of the testimony of qualified experts in the relevant field. So forget about any other studies for just a minute. She began the statement with, these are my receipts, you Nimrod. And Stewart just brushed right past that and pretended like he could play the, 99% of all scientists say that the world is on fire, and so we should give them billions of dollars. Hey, John, if I told you the world was on fire and I'd offered you no solutions to that problem, would you give me $1 billion to solve the problem that I offered you no solutions to? Okay? But here's the rest of that trick. He asks her, basically, where are your receipts? What studies can you point to? That's an interesting question, John. And I'm gonna get on to the AG here a little bit because she didn't immediately respond by naming a couple of studies. She went into an adversarial conversation on camera and was ill prepared for it. Now, she did mention that there is a public record of expert testimony on the matter, but she should have been prepared with some of the studies that refer to this. For example, there have been 12 studies in history, and to John's credit, I will grant that none of them say exactly 98%. Instead, they say things like 63% of the cases desisted, right? 88% of cases desisted, 90% of cases desisted, et cetera,
You're dealing
et cetera.
with such small sample groups.
And that's the other piece. When you're talking about the percentage of the cases that desisted, first you have to understand that you're taking a sample group which is not the entire group of trans kids. And then it's also the case that that number is reduced further by the fact that that entire group is a minuscule sub 1% of global population, right? You've only got a few thousand, maybe a couple of 100,000 out of the 8 billion people to get a sample group from. And then your sample sizes, and that
is a fraction of the fraction of the fraction.
Right, and another piece of the problem with that, transgenderism in this context is actually very similar to armed self-defense.
It's only those that
a big
report.
chunk of that number is based on assuming that the unreported is an additional factor equal to the number that are reported. And let's not forget, we're talking about a group that has a higher rate of suicidality than Jews in Holocaust concentration camps.
Well, here's the other thing, too, and I realize we move on to pretty shaky ground bringing this up, like it wouldn't fly in an actual debate, but for the purposes of this discussion, it still fits. Haven't desisted yet.
Right. There's a whole, and that's another piece I wanted to get to as well.
So and that's important because do they desist in 1 year, or after 5 years of not having an orgasm, does the light bulb go off?
Maybe it's after 5 years of this,
or maybe it's after. Maybe they finally meet somebody and they begin to settle down. The short and simple reason why people track to the right over the course of their life is shit like bills and retirement accounts and children and doctor's appointments, taxes and soccer games and all that. It's going to pull you to the right because you just want to manage your own family and maybe get just slightly ahead in life, and you want to be left the hell alone as you do these things. And maybe what seemed attractive when you were 17, you realize has a pretty narrow band at 25. Or maybe at 30.
Yeah.
Or maybe at 35. So desisted yet.
And so let me. I want to throw a couple of other things at you. We just looked at the list of studies, all of which say that at the barest minimum, well over half. And something else I want to say about those studies. Those studies dealt with children who were brought to some sort of gender clinic type of thing, where people were telling them that you're right to be confused and you need to have surgery and be transitioned. And more than half of those children who were being actively propagandized into choosing to have their genitalia mutilated, more than half of those kids then went on to say, nah, I'm good. I don't want to do that. Right?
You could get arrested for spanking your child in some of these states. But if you take them to a clinic and encourage them to get a double mastectomy, you're a hero.
It's insane. So I want to bring this one up.
Crackshot says something. Crackshot, put a pin in that. We'll come back to that. I promise. The heavily edited thing. I promise. I've got thoughts on that. We'll come back to it.
So this is from the end of July of this year. So just a couple months ago, world's largest pediatric gender clinic shut down due to poor evidence, risk of harm, and operational failures.
Oh, is this not a party?
Huh?
Is this not a party? I thought this was a party.
Right? The UK's National Health Service will close the world's largest pediatric gender clinic. And to be clear, Tavistock was the only British gender clinic.
But it's the biggest, too.
But it's also the biggest in the world. An independent review condemned the clinic as not a safe or viable long-term option because its interventions are based on poor evidence and its model of care leaves young people at considerable risk of poor mental health. Right? And remember, and this is, I'm about to show you a clip.
You mean it depresses people when they find out they can never have children? They're like triple the risk of cancer for the rest of their life, and they can't even have an orgasm ever again. You think that's depressing for people?
I bet that's hard to live with. Yeah. And to be clear, this is from the Nashville Gender Center from the Matt Walsh investigation, and this is a clip from Matt Walsh's investigative video on the subject. I want to be clear about why the medical establishment, the establishment of academia, is so interested in transgenderism.
Some of our BUMC financial folks in October of 2016, starting a couple of years ago, put down some costs of how much money we think each patient would bring in. And this is only including top surgery. This isn't including any bottom surgery. And it's a lot of money. These surgeries make a lot of money. So female to male chest reconstruction can bring in $40,000. A patient just on routine hormone treatment, who I'm only seeing a few times a year, can bring in several $1,000s. So that requires a lot of visits and labs. It actually makes money for the hospital. Now, these I got from the internet, but it's from the Philadelphia Center for Transgender Surgery, which does a lot of surgery for patients. And I just want to give you an idea of how much these bottom surgeries are making. And I think this has to be an underestimate. This is for a vaginoplasty. They're quoting roughly around $20,000 for a vaginoplasty, but that doesn't include your hospital stay. That doesn't include your post-op visits. That doesn't include your anesthesia, your OR. So I would think that
doesn't include your perpetual ongoing care for the remainder of your entire life.
Well, here's the thing, though, okay? I know enough about mastectomy and know enough about vaginoplasty to know that there's just no way the vaginoplasty is cheaper than the mastectomy.
Right. Maybe
none.
Maybe the surgery itself, like what the primary.
No, there is no way that
Maybe.
the zipper tit surgery is less expensive than the cut a dick for me surgery. None.
I agree there, but there's more here that's incredibly important and germane to the conversation.
this has to be a gross underestimate. I think that's just like the surgeon's piece of it, which anybody who's ever been in the hospital knows that that's like 10% of it. And then
See, what she just said right there, anyone who's ever been in a hospital knows that that's just like, that's the surgeon's piece of it, that's just 10% of it. That's just 10% of it?
That's just 10%
So this is a
of the underestimate.
$200,000 procedure.
Well, yeah, I mean, look,
Yeah.
that's what they're motivated by.
And then here's...
female to male bottom surgeries, these are huge money makers. Again, I think this has to be an underestimate that they're quoting around $20,000 for a phalloplasty. There's been different things that I've read that said it could be up to $100,000. Dr. Winokur, who's our surgeon, says that there's entire clinics where the entire clinic is supported just by their phalloplasties.
Right there. These surgeries make so much money that they can pay all of the bills for the clinic. The entire clinic is supported just by these phalloplasties.
Well,
And so if you're doing phalloplasties, everything else is profit.
Well, yeah. No, Danny accidentally made a joke. He said the surgery is not safe and many have sever infection. Yes. Yes, Danny. In fact, they do have severed infections.
And that's a big part of what makes the surgery so dangerous, is that...
Look, it's like, okay, so let's say we had a law firm. A couple of times a year, it would be in our best interest to take on a high-profile criminal defense case, right? Because that's going to pay at least a few $100,000, right? So we can just guarantee the law firm stays open on a couple of cases a year. Willing to throw away your morals and just forget the fact that this is some bizarre mind virus social contagion thing and that you're scarring these children for life and condemning them to not being able to have children of their own, basically. You could be rich. You know, if.
Yeah.
$20,000. There's just no way. Somehow the zipper tit surgery is the one that's the most expensive. Really? I mean, I guess, okay, if I really stretch myself, I guess it's possible because a chest infection can travel straight to your lungs and heart. So maybe, but I don't think so. I absolutely at all do not think so. And man, if you know anybody that's ever had breast cancer and actually had to have one or both of their breasts removed, like, this is not a thing you just do to a woman.
Right.
And
Well-
the fact that it's a thing that you would do to a 16-year-old girl. Hey, are you allowed to buy cigarettes? Not till you're 21.
But we'll cut your tits off. So I want to touch this real quick. I'm already regretting my choice of words here. New York Times reveals painful truths about sex change surgery. So to be clear, we're talking about somebody who's writing an article about how he intends to go through with the surgery. I'm saying he because the name I have here is clearly feminine, and it's the feminine name of a person who's getting a new vagina, who wrote an article entitled "My New Vagina Won't Make Me Happy." This is an op-ed written by a trans person who is about to go through the surgery and has written the article, "My New Vagina Won't Make Me Happy," right? And goes on to say, next Thursday I will get a vagina. The procedure will last around 6 hours and I will be in recovery for at least 3 months. Okay. If that were for an actual emergency life-changing surgery, that recovery period should give you pause. I spent 3 months in bed after an important surgery just a couple years ago, and it was rough. The difference was my new hole healed up and closed and went away, because that's what holes in your body are supposed to do if you weren't born with them. And then it comes here, and this is really the only other thing that I want to bother with from this article. First, Chu acknowledges that the surgery won't actually reassign sex. Obviously, they're not installing a uterus or ovaries, sunshine. My body will regard the vagina as a wound. No, your body won't regard the vagina as a wound. It is a wound. It is a wound where your penis was cut off. Your body regards it as a wound because your body doesn't have the intellectual capacity to conduct the logical gymnastics required to pretend like there's more than two genders. Your body would reject it if it were an object, but it's not. It's not a thing, it's an absence. You are having a part of yourself physically removed and not replaced with a healthy alternative. It will regard the vagina as a wound. As a result, it will require regular, painful attention to maintain for the rest of your life.
For the rest of your likely shorter life, because if the suicide doesn't get you, the cancer probably will. The 40% suicide, just to be crystal clear. Hey, speaking of things of mortality rate, there's one more thing Jon Stewart said that I really want to touch before we get out of here. Remember that?
Yes. And I think I'm close to it.
AAP guidelines for all other health issues
Almost.
in Arkansas.
You need to back it
because
up
we
just
checked.
a bit.
It's acute. And so these mainstream medical organizations have developed guidelines through peer-reviewed data and studies. And through those guidelines, they've improved mental health outcomes. So I'm confused why you follow AMA guidelines and AAP guidelines for all other health issues in Arkansas, because we checked, but not for this.
It's simply saying, let those young
Okay, we
people
need to
who are
back it up again
faced
a
with
little bit
is,
because
and particularly pediatric cancer, and having friends that have lost
cancer.
children.
Look, we're
so
already after 8 o'clock and we're talking about cancer.
We'll stop bopping around the clip all over the place.
Yeah, Jon Stewart just
compares trans
transgender
kids to cancer patients.
Yeah, pediatric cancer and trans kids are the same thing.
It's kind of like when they put the new stripes on the flag to say that being trans or gay is identical to being black or Mexican.
Oh my God. That's not the direction I thought this was going to go. Look, okay. So much there, okay? First of all, that is just a mean and dirty trick to play generally, because anybody that has children knows that your child being diagnosed with cancer is literally one of the worst things you can ever hear about your child, okay? Because your child, just simply put, you will probably outlive your child, and that's kind of the universal nightmare for all parents, okay? Even if they beat cancer this time, for life, they're at risk of it coming back and just killing them dead before there's anything anybody can do about it, okay? So right there, okay? And then to somehow assume that the mortality rate surrounding cancer is in any way comparable to the mortality rate surrounding gender dysphoria is crazy. And as she correctly pointed out, we're just saying let these kids get to legal adult status before they make a decision that could permanently change their life. Because that whole, puberty blockers, well, you can just go off of them and you'll be fine. No, that is not the fuck how that works at all. If you block puberty, you have blocked puberty. It is not a dam in which you can just blow it up and suddenly your river's back. That is not how that works. And here's the truth, and I dare anybody to argue with me. I dare you. You cannot possibly understand what you are asking for when you ask for puberty blockers unless you have been through puberty.
Correct. Try explaining to someone who has never had children, or who has never been to war, or who has never imbibed alcohol, what it is like to have that experience. Good luck. Now, there's something else that Stewart pointed out there that I want to talk about a little bit. He made a big deal about how X, Y, and Z was asserted by peer-reviewed papers. Let me show you some peer-reviewed papers. These are papers from the exact process of
no, we were right there.
Justification.
Can I read my favorite one? The one I was sitting over here chuckling. I was scroll down a little further. Okay, right there. Okay. Revise and resubmit. Richard Baldwin. Agency as an elephant test for feminist porn. Impacts on male explicit and implicit associations about women in society by immersive pornography consumption.
Yeah. Right?
Woo!
Helen Wilson.
That's funny.
Human reactions to rape culture and queer performativity at urban dog parks in Portland, Oregon. Yes, that was literally a paper about how patriarchy and rape culture
or why your dogs hump legs.
Incentivize male dogs to commit rapes in dog parks because dogs don't have the intellectual capacity to offer consent. And it's like, you mean all of sex outside of the human race ever on planet Earth, to the extent of our knowledge? Who are they to judge? Overcoming anthropometry and a framework for fat bodybuilding. Fat bodybuilding? Right?
I mean,
going in through the back door, challenging straight male homo hysteria and transphobia through receptive penetrative sex toy use. An ethnography of restaurant masculinity, themes of objectification, sexual conquest, male control, and masculine toughness in a sexually objectifying restaurant.
Did they eat at Hooters?
Yes. When the joke is on you, a feminist perspective on how positionality influences satire. Moon meetings and the meaning of sisterhood, a poetic portrayal of lived feminist spirituality. Our struggle is my struggle. Solidarity, feminism, and an intersectional reply to neoliberal and choice feminism. This list goes on, and I want to tell you what is amusing about this list. Okay, and in fairness, some of these were rejected. Some of these were rejected by the peer review process. Like My Struggle to Dismantle My Whiteness, a critical race examination of whiteness from within whiteness. Okay, Queering Plato, Plato's allegory of the cave as a queer theoretic emancipatory text on sexuality and gender, et cetera, et cetera. So, but here's the thing about these, especially the ones that were accepted. This is from the so-called grievance studies hoax. Several professors got together. We did a show on this when it happened a few years ago. Got together and said, guys, the peer review process is broken. So they intentionally wrote a bunch of absolutely nonsense academic papers.
But churched it up, made it sound good.
Churched it up, used the right woke terminology and language, and it went right through the peer review process and got published. Included in these publications, ones that were peer-reviewed and then published, was literally an excerpt from Mein Kampf, where they just replaced the word Jew with the word white everywhere. Yeah, okay, there it is. Yeah, Crackshot pointed out a group submitted from Mein Kampf for review. They changed Jews to whites, and the professors loved it. That was from this same hoax, and it's called the grievance studies hoax. I don't think hoax is the right word. I think expose is probably a better word.
Yeah, but it makes the point.
But this is the same peer review process that Jon Stewart is talking about, the studies on transgenderism and child mutilation, to which he's referencing. So look, when the lefty says, the experts say X, Y, and Z, what he means is my experts say X, Y, and Z.
My cherry-picked experts who probably have had their funding threatened to be cut off if they disagree with the narrative. Hey, every single time an actual doctor, somebody that went through 8 years of medical school, went on the YouTubes and said, I don't know if the vaccine's as good as the narrative is pushing how good the vaccine is, they would get thrown off YouTube. And now we're at the point to where we could just openly discuss that the COVID vaccine is not as good as Dr. Fauci wanted us to believe it was going to be. Now, it was a year ago, even making that joke could get our channel a strike. But hey, it's the experts. Trust the science. And speaking of the science about this with cancer, okay, we have literally thousands of years of observational evidence about cancer. It up until fairly recently in the human track, it was referred to as the wasting disease because. Right. You would just get sick for reasons they couldn't understand, and then you would suddenly not be sick anymore. Well, I was going to say you would waste away.
You'd die.
Right? Well, or you could be incredibly sick forever, depending on how you want to view that state of being. Okay? But even in a more modern sense, like, it is known that there is a genetic component to cancer. It is known that the cancer cells themselves have got to be eradicated while doing as little damage to the surrounding tissue as possible. And it's, in fact, part of why they have to perform mastectomies from time to time, because it's just too difficult to pick out the individual spots of cancer in the breast. Okay? We've got actual science to back all that up. To somehow act as though allowing a child to permanently disfigure their body is the same thing as refusing a child to get chemotherapy treatment after they have a leukemia diagnosis. Like, that's not even in the same ballpark as a valid comparison. And look, I just want to touch something that Crackshot said quite a bit ago, because we're long as hell. And this with Jon Stewart on Apple TV, and part of why it fits in with the Woke Wednesday is this is supposed to be entertaining. And I'm sure for a small subset of lefties, it is entertaining. Like, it was right there in the MSNBC headlines, be like, oh, other journalists could take a page out of Jon Stewart's book about how to... No, okay? Because let's be real clear. Stewart's only going to be able to get away with this shit for his first season of this Apple Plus TV show.
Oh, no.
No, hear me out. He's only going to be able to get away with this for season 1 because now we know.
No.
Okay, fine. How?
This is already season 2. This is season 2.
Oh, see.
I wish you were right. It seems like you should be right on this one. But no, This excerpt is from season 2, which was just released.
Okay, well, you know what? Well, that shows you how much of an impact season 1 had.
Exactly.
Well, it'll be much more, well, fine, I'll revise my statement. It'll be much more difficult for Jon Stewart to get away with it for season 3. Because now you know. Every time the lefties penetrate into the mainstream zeitgeist recently, God, does it just fucking backfire on them or what?
It does.
Like, I get it. You edited things together to make this attorney general. So she's got a law degree, right?
A juris doctorate.
Okay, I'm tracking. Which means she went to college and then went back on hurt me plenty mode. Right? Just want to be clear.
Now, in theory, I think you could become AG without a juris doctorate, but nobody does.
Right. Well, in theory, you could join the Supreme Court without a Juris Doctorate.
Yes.
But again, nobody does. Okay. But going forward, I think it's actually going to be much more difficult for that whole... It's a thing that lefties do. They somehow think that condescension is like a good substitute for argumentation. Like they grew up watching Buffy the Vampire Slayer, and you're like, oh, so all I have to do is be quippy to be convincing.
Right.
It's like, look, if you want to compare your life to a world where 16-year-old girls slay vampires, you do you, boo.
God. Ah. I suddenly feel like I need to get my teeth drilled after that uncomfortable conglomeration of syllabic termination.
It was the symbology of the syllables. Yeah, but I actually think this will be a lot more difficult going forward because now everybody's on notice. Be like, oh, okay, we're not going in and having a chat with comedian Jon Stewart. We're going in and we're having a got you interview with Jon Stewart, who's going to very deliberately edit things to make me look stupid and make him look smart. And so, well, we had my people look into it. Oh, I didn't know that I was going to be having an interview and a debate solo against a team of people. But that's good. And look, an attorney general of an entire state, there's no way you remember everything that comes across your desk.
Correct.
Just none.
That's fair.
Okay. And then, as you pointed out, just like she said, well, we had people testify in front of our Congress. Oh, where's your suit? That's an incredibly made up number. It's made up because doctors actually came to our... Anyhow, yes, Jon Stewart is a twat waffle. He just happened to have better comedic timing than most other lefty shitbirds. But now the truth is coming out. Hey, I was gonna say, dear lefties, would you be okay with your kid transitioning? But apparently they are.
They are. They're totally comfortable with aborting their own child in the fourth trimester.
How messed up do you have to be just with your self-esteem and everything to be okay with using your child as a walking accessory to prove to the world that you're worth the millions of dollars you make to,
Yeah. All right. Oh,
we're
okay.
way
And
long,
on that low-ass note.
And there's work and work and work.
Thanks for watching today, guys. We love you, and we'll see you tomorrow.